everybody. I wanted to hold off on releasing this podcast a week later because I felt that it was important for us to be focused and to be able to hear the heart of the guest that I have on today's podcast. If this is your first time joining, it is the Becoming Resilient podcast with yours truly, Patricia Russell. I am a cancer conqueror, and you're going to have conversations on these podcasts about not only cancer, but things and situations that have helped to make you become more resilient. Because I believe that every experience and every challenge is an opportunity for us to develop that muscle of resilience. I'd like to share something from somebody that's very close to me, and he has gone through his journey. And these are some of his thoughts because November is mental health month for men, and mental and sexual and physical prostate health. And so I want to focus on that in these two episodes, but I want to share something from something that he wrote, just expressing his heart feelings. Maybe if you're a man listening to this and you share this, or you share this with another male friend, they might be able to relate to this in some way. I'm sure many Black men do not talk about their feelings and keep it inside. Talking about it makes them seem weak. You do not know how to communicate with your spouse, much less try to intimate with them. That goes out the window, and you feel lonely, and your mental health is shaken to the core. You feel worthless as a man, and you feel vulnerable. You wonder, is life worth living? Thoughts of suicide come into play, but then you stop. You think about your children. You want to see them grow up. You feel ashamed of yourself thinking that way. But hey, you are human. You take one day at a time. Be patient. That's the word that keeps coming back. Sometimes you say to yourself, what do I have to look forward to? Well, I want to let you know that he's come through and he's still struggles with some issues, but God has been very faithful. And hope is here. Hope is here for him. Hope is here for you. And hope continues to be here for my very special guest that I'm looking forward to you hearing his heart and hearing about his journey through this very difficult conversation of prostate cancer. Well, here we are again. Honey, I have my BFF on. And again, thank you so much for your time and for speaking and sharing about this very important topic about around men's health that you can totally, thoroughly relate to. And we're calling this Tales of a Prostate Cancer Survivor, a Black man's perspective. I know it's a lot of words, but I'm using that title from somebody very close to me who also has gone through this situation. And I am going to be referring to something that he has written. The timing is not right for him to come on live, but honey, I thank you for being here and talking about this very important topic. So how are you doing today, first of all?
It's a pleasure being here. I'm doing great, actually. Yeah, it's
Awesome.
been a good week, and yeah, great to be here with you.
Awesome. Thanks again. Let me ask you something. Has prostate cancer been anything that you ever researched or studied or was up on um, before, when you're in your younger years, like even when we were newly married, um, during our early days of marriage? Was it something that you ever researched or were up on?
It wasn't something I researched at all. I mean, I've heard the closest I've come to it is people that I've heard that had it, and I would never think for a million years that I would have had it because it was not something. I was healthy, an athlete. Did a lot of training in my early years and lived pretty well a healthy life. So it wasn't something that was close to my thoughts at all. So didn't do any research on it. other than just hearing that people had it. So yeah, it was definitely a big surprise for me.
Can you
Yeah.
give us a little bit of insight around how how is it that you found out that you had it? Did you have symptoms? Was it from a physical? I mean, I'm your wife, but educate the audience a little bit. Share just a little bit about how you went to check or had the
Mm, mm,
diagnosis come to light.
mhm. Well, I must say I am very glad for my yearly, my yearly tests and yearly physicals. That's the thing that really helped me because I had no symptoms. I had nothing to, some guys when they're having those things, they can't go to the washroom or pee the way that they should. There's so many different symptoms that will come up for guys, but I had none of those symptoms. So the only way that we caught it was my yearly physical that I would go to, and my doctor noticed that something was off. And then we sent and did a PSA test, and sure enough, it came back that it was higher than normal.
You
So
know,
that's how we discovered it.
I have to commend you right there
Yeah,
because it's true. You are one
yeah,
of the few men that I know that
mm,
has taken your health in hand. And I know that you were responsible before, even before um, when I was diagnosed, we
hmm,
both took a handle. We were very intentional and very proactive about our health. And I really admire that aspect about you because not only as a man, but we know infamously that most Black men do not go to the doctor, don't like to go to the
hmm,
doctor, and
mm,
just stay away from anything medical or clinical. So I admire you for that going for the test. When he said to you that the PSA was higher than normal, did anything
mm.
go off in your mind?
When he said that, honestly, I didn't even know what PSA was. What the
Right,
heck was that?
right.
And so again, I had to go and really get it checked out. And when I got that checked out and said that's usually a marker for something else going on in your body. And sure enough, when we did some further blood tests and so on, it showed that something was happening. And then how I really got to know that something was going on is when we did the biopsy, and I found out that I did have it. And I mean, it was still low; it was in the early stages.
Hmm.
So I was glad that we were able to catch it through those yearly physicals, that when the doctor says cough, cough, it's the kind of thing that men don't want to get checked out. And you're right. Yeah. Generally speaking, we don't want to go to the doctor, and we don't want to get those, especially those private places checked.
Yeah.
Again, when the doctor says cough and you and you cough as a guy and he checks you out, those are things that we don't always want, but that was what helped me to find out what was going on in my body.
Well, for if this is a young person or if this is someone who really doesn't or really hasn't, I never want to take it for granted that everybody knows what we're talking about. But the prostate, again, I've shared in the previous episode, is a small gland that sits just below the bladder in men. And
Mm,
issues such as needing to urinate a lot or blood in your semen can be signs that there is a problem. So, what is PSA? PSA it stands for it's a prostate specific antigen. It is a protein which is made by your prostate and found in the blood. And so
mhm,
that's why the score would have come up because when men you go for your physical, that's
mhm,
and even your age, I guess, as you're reaching a certain age, it's something that the doctors want to keep a close eye on
mhm,
as a man, right? So PSA, this prostate specific antigen, is found in both healthy cells and cancerous cells. So it's
mhm,
normal to have some in your blood, but high or increasing PSA levels in your blood usually suggest problems
mhm,
related to the prostate. And so
mhm,
it's really a blood test, right? So that's what they did.
mhm. Yeah, that's what they did at first. They did the blood test, and that's what demonstrated that there was something there. And then further to that, after we did that, just to confirm, then we went ahead and did the biopsy.
Hmm.
And the biopsy, sure enough, I mean, even waiting for the biopsy to come back, there was definitely some anxiety there, as I'm waiting for that. And when that came back and said that there was cancer, again, it was like somebody punched you in the stomach. And then comes a long process of, okay, what do you do from here? There are so many things. There's natural remedies, there's surgery, there's all sorts of things that people are telling you that you can do.
Hmm.
And that's part of the anxiety that comes, and then you go on and go to the doctor and you check things out and they suggest what you can do and what are some of the ramifications of what can happen after whether you go natural or whether you do surgery, some of the things that can happen in your body. And, so some of those things that the news that came in those area wasn't too pleasant. And yeah, so that began the journey of trying to deal with this whole prostate cancer situation.
Tell me, or tell us what what are some of the feelings that you felt when you heard those words? I know you were with me.
Hmm.
You were sitting right with me when you heard the doctor say those words. So, what did you feel? Um, Paint the picture of how you felt like that in that moment.
Yeah, well, I felt, man, is this a joke? Is this some cosmic joke? Because again, that was the last thing I was expecting. I was,
Right.
doing my thing, living life, and going about normal life like
And not
most
just
guys
living
do.
life, because
Yeah, yeah,
folks need to know that you're a full-time pastor, so you're in
yeah,
full-time
yeah,
ministry.
yeah.
You are speaking to groups of people, you're interacting with people on a daily, on a
Hmm.
weekly basis. You're standing
Hmm.
before crowds of people and you're
Mm.
telling them, you're encouraging them to have faith in God. You're letting them know that God has an answer, he has a solution, that they
Hmm.
can make it. You're encouraging them as
Yeah.
somebody who is living, walking, breathing God's faithfulness. Did you feel alone at that time, or did you feel um, what when it came to what did you feel?
Yeah, as I said, it felt like at the time, this is a big joke. I mean, how did this come about? I'm going about normal life. I'm living healthily, eating as I thought at that time, eating right and going about doing ministry and, you know, living life with my wife and children. And all of a sudden, as I'm there and encouraging people, and here's this news. And so definitely it was a hit, definitely. I
Mhm.
mean, and then all sorts of questions. Okay, when you hear the word cancer, especially in areas where you can't see, where is it? Is it in other parts of your body, or is it just localized?
Right.
Um, and how is this going to affect me down the road? Am I going to die? So
A big
definitely
question.
these things.
Is
Yeah,
this
all
it?
these. Yeah, all these questions cross my mind, and
Right.
and again, you're a pastor, but and you trust in God, but it doesn't stop you from being human. And definitely, all those questions crossed my mind, and it wasn't something that it was a joke, but I knew it was also serious. Then I needed to take this seriously and start to see how I can deal with it. And so I was glad to have you there, sweetie. And our doctor was very, very good too in terms of just being there and sharing information with us. That was quite helpful. But
That
again, it was yeah,
that was our family doctor, but the
our family doctor.
urologist,
Yeah.
I'm not cutting him down or anything, but did you have to how did you manage that interaction? Was it
That was
warm? Was it fuzzy? Was it
Yeah,
cold? Was it
that one was not the best interaction at all for me because again, he was kind of pushy. He was definitely trying to get me to go a certain direction and basically saying that if I don't deal with this right away, that I could be, well, you do this or it's your life. It's so very, very pushy. not even giving me any information, so that I can get informed for myself. He's trying to tell me from his perspective how to deal with this. So
Right.
that interaction with him was very, very, um, very intimidating.
Right.
And it wasn't a good feeling at all. So if I was to encourage any man out there, when you get a diagnosis like this, find somebody who could speak at your level, at your pace,
Hmm.
not somebody who's trying to push you into something that you may not be ready for. Yes, it's
Hmm.
serious, but you're not going to die at that moment. All right. You need to take some time, or if you're going to die at all. I mean, there are treatments. Prostate cancer nowadays is survivable, especially when you catch it early.
Right.
But again, you need the proper information so that you can make an informed decision. And
Right.
that was what. So after that, we just went to reading. We went to researching, and as I said before, I didn't know anything about this topic. So we went to researching and reading and getting informed about how to go along and deal with it. So yeah.
Information, information, information.
Hmm.
We went to researching. There was not, I'm trying to, I've always tried to think who was it that we could speak to at that time about it. And not only because of more because of the nature of the disease, because it's in men. Men don't talk about their situation. They
Hmm.
don't, it was not something that we could quickly see on the internet. And
Hmm.
even in the early days of information explosion on the internet, Black men were
Hmm.
not speaking about this issue, right?
And men have a hard time articulating things in the first place,
Right.
and
Talk to
especially
us.
when yeah, and especially when it comes with that area. That area down there. We don't always want to talk about it, and it's not something that's easy to talk about. And when I got this, there was nobody that I knew of that had it, that I could even talk to about it. So it was almost like it was an alone feeling for
Hmm.
me at that moment, not knowing who to talk to, not knowing anyone that went through it. And so it's just reading and video testimonies of people that have gone through it.
Hmm.
Those are the things that helped me through, and just a lot of reading, as I said, but no one that I knew of that I could actually broach the subject with. So,
Right.
yeah, so that was
You know,
very, yeah.
as the journey went on, I remember us talking with a family friend who put us on to somebody who was going through a high PSA at the time and was made a few recommendation. He was also a pastor, and that helped. What would you say to what would you say to a man who um, is refusing to go for a clinic? What do you say to Black men on a whole who maybe they haven't gone for a physical, not even the last 2.5 years that we've had this pandemic?
Mhm.
Maybe they've been fine and stable, but they still see no need, regardless of what the medical condition may be in their world. What do you say to them?
I say, hey, bro, listen up here. It's time to go and get yourself checked out. It doesn't matter how you feel or embarrassed you think you may be. Get yourself checked out, get in there. It's better to be safe than to be sorry,
Mhm.
than to be having something developing in your body and you're not even sure, but because of your fear or because of your pride or whatever it may be, you don't go. Um, it's better you pick yourself up, get your good self up, and get to the
Mhm.
doctor, get yourself checked out. All right. My dad used to say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Mm,
So get
true
in there and get
words.
it done. Get her done.
Get her done. Get her
Get her
done.
done.
But I'm scared, Pastor Wayne. I'm afraid, and I don't want to know what that. Mega dead.
Mm,
You know, um, but it's important to think about your family and the people that you're interacting with.
mhm.
You had a family that was supporting you. What do you say to the young man that doesn't have doesn't have a close friend, doesn't and is hesitant to even share if their father is alive or talk to another man. What do you say to them?
It's it's hard to really be in somebody else's shoe. In a sense, it's hard to know how people respond when they hear the news. Everybody responds differently. Some people, they don't even respond; they react.
Hmm.
And when they react, it's like they close themselves off.
Right.
But I'd say choose to respond, and the right response would be to, especially in this day and age, there are many people who have had it. So I'd say ask questions, ask around, ask your community, ask your pastor, ask someone, friends around. Do you know anybody who have had this? I've had a number of people who have asked me, and I've been able to share my story. People have asked me if I know of anyone who've gone through it, and I've been able to pass information on to them. So yeah, that's the first thing. Ask around. Ask
Hmm.
for people who could speak and be there for you. And again, don't journey alone, even if it's somebody that hasn't gone through it.
Right.
It's good to have someone come along with you, whether they can pray with you or just talk with you, someone that you
Right.
can bounce things off. They can help you do research. Say you're a single man and you don't have a significant other, you don't have a spouse that you could bounce this off. Yeah, have another brother help you to do some research. And they can pray with you, they can encourage you. But the main thing is don't journey this alone. Don't go through it alone. Find someone that you can trust, someone that, even if it's just one person, then you know that you're not going and facing this journey alone. So that would be my encouragement to you. Don't journey alone. Find someone that will be right there with you. And I believe that will be so encouraging for you as you begin this process.
This is so good. This is so important, so good, and so glad that you said that because as you know, we've always said if we didn't have each other, we would need to find somebody because
Mm,
the saying goes that no man is an island. And if you try to go through a hard time, whether it's cancer, whether it's a financial difficulty, whether it's an emotional difficulty. It is challenging to try to do it alone. And so, you need to find someone. Honey, I'm going to read something and I want to ask you to give some response to it. It was
mhm,
written by somebody very close to us where they also had that journey. And this might really reflect how you feel. Um, the biopsy results had come back, and my urologist wanted to discuss the results with an appointment that was scheduled in his office. And at the end of his statement, the words, "You have prostate cancer," he went into shock. My world stopped. Um, and he related it to um his father passing away, the moment, the same way he felt when his father passed away
mm,
from suddenly. And so coming out of the office, he called his wife and said he had some news to share with her. um but he made this statement. He said, "When I got home, we sat down in the bedroom and I told her the news. We both cried and hugged each other." And then he said, "You savor that moment holding each other because your life is about to change after
mhm,
that."
mhm.
Is that a similar or different, or does that express what might have been happening in your world, in your mind at that time? I don't want to put, I know how I felt, but how did you feel? Does that summarize it?
I'm usually an optimistic, upbeat person, and that's how I try to take it. I try to be as optimistic as I can be through the whole situation. It doesn't mean that there weren't moments that, as I said, it hit me like a ton of bricks. But I wasn't going to let it weigh me down to such an extent that I couldn't function. I got the news, it hit me, and again, everybody responds and reacts differently. But it did hit me. But at the same time, I said, no, I got to go on. And for me, I just said, okay, somehow I'm going to face this, and by the grace of God, and I think that's partly what helped me. was to know that there's that spiritual strength that came through.
Right.
There was that support that I had from you, and even my children were very supportive. To know that there were, and one of the driving things for me is that, yeah, people are depending on me, whether I have cancer or not. I've got a family that I got to take care of, so I don't have time for to moping and all those things around. Not to say again that emotions weren't there.
Right.
They were there, and
Hmm.
I had the times when I said, "Man, why did this happen?" But
Right.
at the same time, I recognized that I had to go on, and I couldn't make it to be the end of my world.
Right.
I had to keep going, and so I just went on and tried to learn and grow as much as I could through the whole time. And when the sad moments came, I cried for a little, and then I got back up again. I didn't. I
You
purpose not to stay there.
cried. You cried. You cried. Did I see you
Yeah,
cry? Yeah, you
yeah, I
cried.
did. Yeah, I purpose not to stay there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
If there was anything that you could say that you might have done differently, um, uh, is there anything that you might have done differently looking back 2020? I know 2020, they say hindsight is 2020. That the phrase. I'm not sure if I'm saying it
Mm-hmm.
right. But is there anything differently that you might have done? And this is not to be I don't want to, yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Um, just looking back, because my surgery took place in 2011. I got the diagnosis early 2011, and then September of 2011, or sorry, November of 2011 is when I did the surgery. And looking back, so many people went another route. They tried to do it a little bit more naturally rather than doing a surgery. Because even my surgery itself was kind of a traumatic experience, because even on the surgery table, they were supposed to be doing a robotic surgery, and not to scare anybody, but that robotic surgery, it didn't work. So they had to go through and do the regular surgery. That actually the robot broke halfway through the
Can
surgery.
you imagine the robot went to sleep? That's
Went to
to tell
sleep.
you folks that nothing
So
is
nothing is foolproof. So I
right.
I was I was asleep when that happened. So I was glad I wasn't awake. So again, um, looking back, I'd say you be informed with the decision and be comfortable with the decision. Don't let anybody force you into any particular route. You do your work. You measure your risk and your pros and cons, and you make the decisions for yourself. Um, I kind of look back and I said I kind of wish I didn't let some of those thoughts enter into me as much.
Hmm.
Especially the ones that the doctors spoke. It really threw me for a little bit there, and so yeah, you make up your own decision, your own mind, and
So did
decide for
you feel
yourself.
forced in any way, or did you like are
I
you
felt
saying
intimidated. I felt
okay.
intimidated in a
Hmm.
certain way to be quick in what I'm supposed to be doing, rather than basically go on somebody's knowledge of what's to be done rather than me being informed.
Okay.
So if anything, even though I got informed, but I still felt like I was um, I was kind of pressured from that doctor's point of view.
So did you
So
feel that you wanted to wait more before
yeah,
making a decision? Is that
yeah,
what you're
I felt
saying?
I wanted
Yeah.
to wait a little bit more
Okay.
and decide which way to go, even though I did eventually. But
Okay.
I felt that was kind of pushed that way.
Okay.
So again, make decisions for yourself. And looking back, but for the most part, everything else I did, I was very thankful the way it went. The journey itself, though, I mean, that's probably for another part, another topic of discussion here. Once you get the diagnosis and you get the surgery and what took place after surgery, all those things, I mean, that's a different journey by itself. You
Yeah.
know,
You know what? It's funny. The diagnosis is not so much, the diagnosis is painful,
Hmm.
But again, we talk about our journey in life. We've counseled and coached people who are going to get married, and we say
Hmm.
that, the wedding day, the whole engagement, the party is exciting. But once you step in through your private quarters and the journey begins,
It begins.
that,
Mm,
that's the journey of living, the journey of
mm,
falling down and healing and
mhm,
growing.
mhm,
The journey of healing sometimes
mm,
can be more weighty.
exactly. Because I mean, for me, it was the diagnosis was one thing, as you said, but then you get the surgery, and the surgery itself is an ordeal. And then once you go through the surgery, then it's the healing after that and the recovery after that, which
Right.
itself is another journey, especially when you're talking about down there, and all the ramifications,
Down there
when it
where?
comes
Just joking.
when,
Just joking. Just joking.
when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to recovery of bodily use, your manhood, all that kind of stuff. It's a journey, and
Right.
and that's something that again is not the same for everyone, but it's definitely a process that you have to go through. You know, and I don't know if you want to touch on any of that right now, but I could definitely
I think
highlight
I
some of
want
it.
to, I'm not going to, I think we're going to tackle that another time because I know that is a very, I know it's deeply personal and,
Mm,
but I know it's something that people want to know about and want to be encouraged of. But I just want to thank you very much for, um, sharing this, with men and women who need to know about this, who need to be informed. I shared on the broadcast previous that, Black men do not reflect or show up differently when it comes to this disease. It affects Black men in a different way. And because we tend to be so closed in about it, that
hmm.
sometimes you're experiencing symptoms that you don't want to discuss. And it's something that I really believe that God entrusted, I say that carefully, entrusted you to go through it. One as a leader, one as a faith, two as a faith leader, and three as a Black man, so that you can share your experiences and so that you can be a light of hope for
Mm.
other men. And I'm so thankful that you are. I'm so thankful that you've come through, and I'm so thankful that you were so willing to share about it because many would not. I want to close off by asking you this question, asking you a response to this as a man of the cloth, as they would say, as a man in leadership. I want to, we quote a lot of things as believers. We read the scriptures, and we want to say we want to believe a lot of things, and we want to quote scripture very strong and powerfully. But I want you to give me your feedback on how this one hits you. Philippians chapter 3 verse 10. The apostle Paul is making a declaration here that I think many of us love to quote, but then when the rubber hits the road, as it did hit you, I want to know how you would how you identified with this, if you remember reading this at that time. And it says, Paul was saying that I may know him. He had a desire to be like Christ. He said that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being conformed to his death. The writer of this says that I may know the fellowship of his suffering. Paul is essentially saying, I want to suffer. He's saying, as much as I want to know Christ and the power of his resurrection, I also want to share in Christ's sufferings. So my question to you is that is that your response? Would you be agreeing with Paul in that? In this situation of prostate cancer, this was suffering, this was a trial for you, but how does that scripture now hit you when you read
Mm.
it and when you think about your sufferings?
Well, theologically speaking, most of Paul's suffering was for the cause of Christ. And it was people persecuting him, it was people maligning him, throwing him in jail. And so when he said, I'd suffer for the cause of Christ, that was a tremendous thing that he was doing. But he also had a thorn in the flesh. and things that affected him, and we don't know what that was, whether it was a demon, whether it was a blindness, so many things that they said that could have been happening. But when anybody suffers physically, it's in a sense, it's suffering is something that is just tremendous. And when I think about that, I think about how Christ suffered for us.
Hmm.
And it's like the scripture says, your little suffering now is nothing compared
Compare,
to
right,
what he suffered for all of us.
right.
And so when I think about it, I think, yes, okay, I'm kind of identifying a little bit about this is just my own suffering, but can you imagine suffering for every human being? So I kind of identified with that a little bit when I felt that pain and felt that, the pain of the surgery, the pain of the recovery. It really got me to the place where I could identify a little bit with the suffering of Christ, with what he felt like a little bit, and again, just minutely, how he must have felt carrying the whole weight of the world. This is just my little thing here, and I could barely tolerate it.
Right.
But and I'm just getting a little taste of my own thing. But how about carrying the weight of every human being physically,
Right.
spiritually, socially? I mean, that must have been tremendous weight that Christ was carrying. So for me, it was, in those silent and lonely moments when I was feeling, the physical pain, and yeah, and there was some physical pain. It really enabled me to see, okay, this is yeah, some of what Christ was feeling, the loneliness.
Right.
I identified with that a little bit as he
Right.
was being alone on the cross, as he was alone in so many different ways. I was able to get a little bit of taste of what he must have felt when he was carrying all our sin and shame.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that brought me a closer to appreciate what Jesus did for us, and how suffering allows us to be able to open up and see how vulnerable we can be,
Mm.
um,
Oh my
to
goodness.
the world and to the things around us, and that we're finite.
That
So
part.
yeah.
Yeah. That
Mm.
part of feeling that, you're good and strong, and I see how you lift those weights, and you think that you're, Hercules, that you can lift
Yeah,
all of
yeah,
those
yeah,
things. And
yeah.
then you get just one part of your body could be affected, and
Hmm.
it just puts you in a place where you have to be dealing with a lot of mental
Hmm.
gymnastics, and a lot of
Hmm.
emotional and spiritual gymnastics,
Hmm.
and things that you have to deal with in your heart and in your mind. And it
Hmm.
just kind of almost flattens you, so that you realize and recognize your frailty and
Yeah.
your humanity.
I mean, when talk about, it talks about in Corinthians about the body, about when one part of the body hurts, how the rest of the body hurts, and how my hand had to help my leg move, and the rest of my body had to help the rest of the body just to help when I had to ease the pain, I had to kind of sit up sometimes, and my arms was helping my body to kind of help with the pain. And so again, when one part of the body hurt, the other hurt. And so many illustrations came out of that time, that season. For
Right.
me, many illustrations came out of that, and many identifications came out of that. So, yeah, it was definitely a learning period and a growing period for me.
Wow. 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 Well, I want to thank you for this time that you sat with us. And I want to thank you for explaining your journey, sharing a bit about your journey on what it feels like to be diagnosed with this, as we encourage men to take care of their mental, emotional, and
Mm,
physical health, and be attentive to listening to their bodies, be attentive to listening to what's happening within them, because those things that they're feeling are important. It's not only women that feel things, but a lot of times men pass it
mm,
off. I want to thank you for being attentive to that, for not taking it lightly. And I want to thank you and celebrate you as you continue to share and speak with men, Black men, and encourage them to take care of not only their families, but to take care of their own selves and their own well being.
Mhm.
Um, is there anything else that you want to say before we sign off?
No, it's been an honor just to be here with you to share. And I hope and pray that wherever people are, whether you be a black man, white man, whatever man you are, and you are going through situations like this, that you will definitely get some good people around you that can be an encouragement for you. Don't journey this alone, but there are people that will be willing to be there with you, to pray with you, to encourage you, and to journey with you. So don't do it alone. God bless you.
Thank you, Wayne Russell. Pastor Wayne Russell, thank you so much for being with us today. And we just want to continue to encourage you as a listener listening in on this that remember, resilience is a muscle that you develop through every situation and challenge that you face. We look forward to being with you next time. Don't forget to subscribe and share this with somebody who can be encouraged and benefit from this. Until the next time, bye bye.
Take care.